Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're your shortcut to getting informed without feeling totally overwhelmed. Our mission here is simple. Take a whole stack of sources, pull out the really important bits, and walk you through them. Today, we are diving deep into, well, one of the biggest names in artificial intelligence, OpenAI. There are recent reports flying around suggesting a pretty dramatic shift in its core mission, and we're going to unpack what that could mean for AI's future and maybe more importantly for you.
Yeah, we'll be digging into a collection of reports. People are calling them the OpenAI files. And they really shine a light on some growing concerns from folks who used to work there. They're basically saying that, what started as this mission-driven place, really committed to making sure AI helps everyone, might now be leaning more towards profit, maybe at the expense of safety and ethics. That's the real tension here we need to explore.
Right. And this deep dive is really set up for you. Maybe you're prepping for a meeting, or you just want to get up to speed on the field, or maybe you're just really curious about who's actually in the driver's seat for artificial general intelligence AGI. We think we've got you covered.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning then. When OpenAI was founded, it made this promise. It was pretty groundbreaking at the time, set them apart. What was that original vision? And how was it set up to stop, power and money getting concentrated?
Well, the original vision was, pretty revolutionary. It was structured as a nonprofit, but with this kind of subsidiary capped profit arm. The whole point was to explicitly limit how much investors could make back and to make sure the huge benefits of advanced AI would be shared broadly, not just hoarded by a few. It wasn't just like a nice idea on paper. It was meant to be a real safeguard, considering the potential power of AGI. Now, insiders are saying that very promise is being, taken apart. And this isn't just some corporate restructuring thing. It's really testing whether these founding principles for AI development can actually hold up when, massive commercial pressure comes along. The insight, maybe the worrying insight, is that the very things designed to protect us might be the first things to go when big investor returns are dangling.
And you can really feel that sense of, betrayal, maybe abandonment for a lot of the former employees. Carol Wainwright, who used to be on staff, put it pretty bluntly, saying, and I'm quoting here, "The nonprofit mission was a promise to do the right thing when the stakes got high. Now that the stakes are high, the nonprofit structure is being abandoned, which means the promise was ultimately empty." That's a pretty strong statement from someone inside.
It absolutely is. And what's really kind of unsettling is the implication that this structure, which was, carefully designed for safety and broad benefit, is now allegedly being pushed aside by financial interests. And this is happening just as the AI models are getting powerful enough to have, a real impact on society. The timing is tricky.
Right. So this shift in mission, it naturally leads us to talk about the leadership. Specifically, Sam Altman, the CEO, he seems to be right at the center of this storm. What are the main criticisms about his leadership style coming out in these reports? Are they pretty consistent?
Yeah, the reports definitely suggest, quite strongly actually, that his leadership style has created a lot of mistrust, maybe even chaos within OpenAI. Employees felt undermined, is the sense you get. And apparently these concerns aren't brand new either. Altman reportedly faced similar calls, calls for his removal, in past ventures because of behavior described as deceptive and chaotic. So it raises this really interesting and frankly critical question about leadership, especially in these high-stakes tech areas. Is there a point where that kind of maybe charisma or drive becomes a problem when what you really need is just absolute trust and transparency?
Yeah, and it sounds like that's exactly the question that co-founder Ilya Sutskever was grappling with. He actually questioned publicly Altman's fitness to lead AGI development.
Yeah.
He said, famously now, "I don't think Sam is the guy who should have the finger on the button for AGI," and he points specifically to dishonesty and a tendency to create disorder as huge red flags. I mean, that's massive coming from co-founder.
It really is huge. And Sutskever wasn't alone. The former CTO, Mira Murati, reportedly echoed similar feelings. She described, what sounds like a deeply toxic culture under Altman, accusing him of basically telling people what they wanted to hear, but then undermining them behind their backs. And Tasha McCauley, who was on the board, she called that behavior unacceptable, especially, given the incredibly high stakes around AI safety. These aren't just small disagreements, are they? They point to really fundamental problems with trust and how the company operates at the very top.
So, okay, beyond the leadership issues, the reports also talk about a shift in the internal culture at OpenAI. How has this push, this rapid release of new products, the big language models everyone's talking about, how has that affected the company's focus on AI safety and ethics,
Yeah.
which was supposed to be core, right?
Right, that was the original idea. Jan Leik, who was really key in leading the team focused on long-term safety, he described trying to get resources for that critical safety research. He said it felt like sailing against the wind. It
Okay.
paints a really vivid picture, doesn't it? It suggests these fundamental long-term values clashing with the day-to-day pressure to get products out the door to meet financial targets. And when you're talking about AGI, that kind of clash is, well, it's genuinely chilling to think about.
And it apparently gets even more alarming. There was testimony before the U.S. Senate from another former employee, William Saunders. He revealed that OpenAI's internal security sometimes was so loose that hundreds of engineers could have accessed and potentially even stolen the company's most advanced AI models. We're talking GPT-4 here.
Yeah.
For anyone listening who isn't deep in the weeds, GPT-4 is like one of the most powerful and widely used AI models out there right now. It's the engine behind so many cutting-edge AI applications. The thought of that kind of technology falling into the wrong hands it's pretty staggering.
It is staggering. And this reported weakness, this vulnerability, it isn't just some corporate oopsie. It points to a much bigger and frankly more unsettling question. How can we possibly trust an organization with humanity's future if its basic security for its most valuable, most powerful assets is reportedly so weak? It's a disconnect that's really hard to ignore.
But despite all this disillusionment we're hearing about, these former employees, they aren't just walking away and giving up on the original mission. They've actually put forward some concrete ideas, some reforms, to try and get OpenAI back on what they see as the right track, to put safety and ethics back at the center. So what are they suggesting? What are these solutions?
They've laid out 5 pretty specific changes they think are essential. First, they want to restore the power of the original nonprofit structure, specifically giving it the ability to veto decisions on safety grounds, like a real check and balance.
Okay.
Second, they're calling for independent oversight. So safety measures aren't just being marked by OpenAI's own homework, real external checks.
Makes sense.
Third, a thorough, impartial investigation into Sam Altman's conduct and a serious look at whether he's the right person for the role, given everything. Fourth, real whistleblower protections. Strong ones. So people inside feel safe raising concerns about safety or ethics without fearing they'll lose their jobs, creating that transparent culture.
Right, fostering that openness.
And fifth, bringing back those profit caps. Reinstating them to really align the company, again, with its founding mission prioritizing public good over just generating massive private wealth.
Those are definitely concrete proposals. You can see they come from a place of deep concern.
Yeah.
But I mean, thinking about the huge commercial pressures we've discussed, this hyper-competitive AI race, are these proposals realistic? Can they actually work in today's environment? Or maybe did they even go far enough? It just shows how incredibly complicated this whole situation is.
It absolutely does. And this whole debate, it's really about much more than just OpenAI. Yes, they're at the forefront developing tech that could literally reshape our world in ways we can barely imagine right now. Work, life, everything. But the fundamental question these former employees are raising affects every single one of us. Who can we actually trust to guide AI development responsibly, especially when there are just unbelievable amounts of money involved?
Yeah. Helen Toner, who is also on the board, she put it very bluntly. She warned, internal guardrails are fragile when money is on the line. And what we're hearing from the people who knew OpenAI best from the inside suggests that those guardrails might already be crumbling. And that leaves the future of AI, and you could argue humanity itself, facing some pretty unprecedented risks. This deep dive, really, the goal was to give you the insights, the context, to help you critically evaluate the news as it comes out and to understand just how profound the implications of these developments really are. So we've really tried to unpack a very complex situation at OpenAI today. We've gone from its, quite idealistic founding principles through to these current pretty serious concerns from former insiders about the leadership, the culture, and this apparent shift towards prioritizing profit over safety.
Yeah, and we've heard directly about that tension, haven't we, between pushing technology forward at breakneck speed and the absolute critical need for strong ethical guardrails. We've seen how those internal company dynamics can have a massive impact on the tech that's shaping all our futures.
Absolutely. And that fundamental question, who gets to guide AI's development? And can profit motives ever truly align with what's best for humanity? That question is definitely not going away. And it's just so vital for you, for all of us, to stay informed as these stories keep developing. So here's something to think about. If the very people, the scientists and engineers who actually build these incredibly advanced AI models are now sounding the alarm about the direction their own company is heading, what responsibility do we as a society have? What responsibility do we have to demand more transparency, more accountability from these incredibly powerful companies that are quite literally shaping our technological future?